Manchester United 2, Aston Villa 0. The game is over. The season is over. United finished 15th in our worst ever Premier League finish. It's been an absolute, I would say roller coaster, but that would imply more highs than there have been this season.
Yeah.
It's been a real dig this season, hasn't it?
Yeah.
When you think you can't get any lower.
A roller coaster that stays on the ground the whole time.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
I'm joined by Finn, aka Academy Scoop. How are you doing, Finn?
Yeah, a little bit relieved after that. I think now we can just put that nightmare behind us and hopefully look towards something a little bit more positive.
Yeah.
And yeah, just one of the most straightforward performances we've seen under Ruben Amorim. So happy today.
Yes. We'll go through the game today. We'll also have a bit of a wider look at the season. We can have a look at that final sort of European flurry of the teams at the top, but that was largely boring and irrelevant by half time as well, because a lot of those teams lost. Let's start with today and then we'll widen it out. You mentioned there that this is one of United's more sort of straightforward performances all season. Just looking at the numbers, 67% possession, 25 shots to Villa's 6, 10 on target to their 1, 4 big chances to their 0, more than double the amount of passes that they had. And obviously there was a sending off at the very end of the first half, which has sort of exacerbated a lot of those numbers. But let me just give you the first half stats to illustrate that this wasn't just a red card moment of a game. We had 66% in that possession in the first half. We had 9 shots to their 1, even more dominant in terms of shots, 5 on target to their 0, and again, more than double the amount of passes. The second half wasn't any more difficult or dominant for Manchester United than the first half was. We just controlled almost all of this game. Are you surprised by that?
Yeah, if you told me we would have dominated in that fashion before the game, I wouldn't have believed you. I predicted an Aston Villa win. They had a lot more on the line. They were playing for Champions League football, and yet, right from kickoff, there was no urgency, no kind of desire or drive to win from them. They were passive. They stepped off the ball, and United were in complete control from start to finish. The red card really didn't change the game in any way, but because they were passive throughout the 90. And that's the kind of, in those numbers you just referenced there in terms of our shots and our possession and, the chances we created and the few chances that we conceded. That's the standard for United, and that's what we should be aiming for. So it was definitely a surprise that we performed like that, but a very welcome one.
Yeah, definitely. And there's a few people in the comments talking about the goal that Villa probably should have had, the red card, etc. Just as I've already said, United were controlling that game before the red card. There was, however, though, in the second half, at 0-0, a crucial moment where we saw Altay Bayindir leave his goal, go to collect the ball, and was either in the process of collecting it or in the process of spilling it, or maybe somewhere between the two, when the ball was kicked out of his hands, put into the back of the net. But luckily for us, the referee blew the whistle before the ball crossed the line, meaning that they couldn't even check. They couldn't VAR it. United basically got away with one. Again, I don't know if it would have been overturned or not, but we know now that it couldn't have been because the way the ref sort of officiated that. Were United lucky there? Was Bayindir lucky there?
I think United was certainly lucky to get away with it, but had the goal been given, it would have been a get out of jail free card for Villa anyway, because it wouldn't have been a very deserved goal for them anyway. So I don't think it's like it was this enormous injustice, because I think there was an argument to be had on both sides that it would have been an injustice. So yeah, I think it's poor keeping from Bayindir. Whether or not you think it's a foul, he should still be in complete control of that situation. He tries to collect the ball and it's kind of slipping out of his hands as he's holding it. So Bayindir needs to do better, but overall I don't think it was demonstrative of how Aston Villa had played, because again, apart from that, United had been really in complete control and hadn't allowed Villa to get any clear goal scoring opportunities.
Yeah, it's weird, wasn't it, the Villa performance generally, because I know we spoke about it from our side, but I think even if you're a slightly frustrated or very frustrated Villa fan who thinks that you should have maybe got a goal there, which I can understand that, you have to admit your team didn't turn up. Villa just were not at the races whatsoever today. They were poor. It
was hard to tell how much of it was United being excellent and how much of it was just Villa being really weirdly and uncharacteristically poor.
Yeah.
I think definitely elements of both. What we usually see from United is we'll have a really bright opening 5 or 10 minutes, have a few chances that don't go in, and then we'll kind of step off the gas for the rest of the game. But we actually just continued to cruise for the most part throughout the game and remained in control. And Villa, even towards the latter stages, never really grew in any particular urgency and didn't look like they really cared about what was on the line for them. So it was very kind of bizarre performance.
If that Villa team had blank shirts on, you never would have known they were a team going for top 4 or for Champions League football. They didn't have that energy intensity at all. And on the Bayindir thing, we can all have our own judgments as to whether he was touching the ball, where he was spilling it, whether he wasn't. I'm going to read the rules on it. So for anyone who wants a bit of clarification on exactly what is considered to be a goalkeeper being in control of the ball, I'm going to start with the sentence. This is in the FA's website. A goalkeeper cannot be challenged by an opponent when in control of the ball with the hand, brackets S. So one or both hands. That's the starting point here. And this is the sort of bullet point that pertains to this situation, I think. So a goalkeeper is considered to be in control of the ball with the hand or hands when the ball is between the hands, which this was-ish, but it wasn't touching both of them, or between the hand and any surface, e.g. the ground or own body, or by touching it with any part of the hand or arms. So if that ball was touching Bayindir's hand, either of his hands, when that ball is kicked, it's a foul.
By the third part of that criteria, then you would kind of describe it as a foul.
It potentially, and that's the thing. Was it touching his hand? Was it an inch off both hands somehow? Was it touching one or the other?
Maybe it started to bubble away from his hands.
But all that needs to have been happening is Bayindir to be touching that ball with his hand, and it's a foul. Yeah. So again, we never got the benefit of the VAR going over it because of the way it was officiated. But those are the rules for you to dig into that as much as you want. I probably would guess that Villa fans care more about that than United fans because our season was fucked either way. Villa might well have got Champions League football if that had gone in, but they're the rules. So if you're watching and you're a Villa fan, consider that when you're watching those replays. Just on United, there were some good performances today, and I do want to look at the bigger picture because it seems weird sitting here talking positively when this is the final game of the season. But I thought we saw some good stuff in the first half. Ahmad, of course, is just always good, isn't he? Always dangerous. Got the goal as well, but just looked like a very, very good player as he always tends to. You can almost
always rely on a certain level of quality and energy from Ahmad. And it was the same today, And I really liked some of the positions he took up off the ball, some of the, passes that he made available by dropping into the midfield. He was kind of everywhere today, on and off the ball. Just another really positive performance. And of course his goal, I think, was fantastic. The run and the execution with the header, just brilliant. The pass as well from Bruno, another one who got a load of stick after Wednesday. He was poor against Tottenham, but another brilliant performance from him today. An assist, 5 shots as well, just a constant danger. He was the man that was transitioning that ball up the pitch all the time as well. Casemiro, another decent shift. I thought Højlund had a decent game, but Aiden Heaven is another one that I want to focus on. Only played 66 minutes. He seems to get some sort of injury, but 18 years old, he just does so much. 65 touches in the game defensively, 5 clearances, 3 interceptions, 7 ball recoveries as well, dribble past 0 times. Just does so much, doesn't he? And seems so accomplished physically and on the ball. And it doesn't, I think with a defender this young, they almost automatically get the tag of being raw attached to them. With Aiden Heaven, being objective about his performances, they don't even feel particularly raw. They feel quite accomplished and quite well-rounded. He always seems in relative control of whatever situation he's in, really composed on the ball, defensively really impressive, because I've said it a few times, but when he was coming in, that was the slight doubt about his game, was the defensive side, because he'd kind of come through the ranks at Arsenal as a midfielder. But I think he's been a resounding success in terms of his signing. For 1.5 million, I think that represents, incredibly good value. And if his performances this season, though they've been few, if they're demonstrative of his potential and his ceiling, then I think we've got a really, really top level player on our hands. Yeah, really exciting. There's nearly 3,000 people watching, only 139 likes. Let's hit the like button. If you're watching after the live as well, please do hit the like button.
let's talk a little bit bigger picture. Let's get the Premier League table up here. As you can see there, let's not worry about first. But United basically handed Newcastle a Champions League place there because they lost today as well. Slightly sort of pathetic fashion to Everton. We also saw Forest lose, but that was to Chelsea, another one of the teams going for the top four. So the Champions League teams are Liverpool, Arsenal, City, Chelsea and Newcastle. Would have been Villa. Even with a draw, it would have been Aston Villa. That shows just how much they didn't turn up, and they'll be kicking themselves. A draw today against the worst United team in history would have got them Champions League football. Forest dropping down to 7th, which I think is Europa Conference for them. United up to 15th though, which is the highest we've been in a few weeks. Not that it particularly matters. What is it? A couple extra million quid. When you look at that table and you're looking at the top, and you, as a United fan, when I look at a league table, I look in that top third. That's just my instinct as a United fan. My interest is in that top third.
Anything below that shouldn't be of any concern to a United fan. And
exactly.
Yet it is this
and
season.
it's a little bit elitist, and it's a little bit whatever. But that's the standards Man United have been at for the last 50 years, or certainly the last 30, 40 years. Now we're used to looking at this portion of the table, which is mad. But that's where we are. How do you sort of sum up what we've seen this season that's led Manchester United to be 15th place? And that's a 15th, having jumped a place today.
It's abysmal on every level.
Yeah.
Although, what I'd say is, to me, it's of little difference whether you finish 8th or 17th. As no matter what, it is not good enough to be in any of those positions that aren't at least, challenging for a European position. Yeah. At the very least for United. The standards have slipped over time, and there are many different reasons for that. Obviously, when you have a season as poor as this, no one is devoid of blame. Everyone has to be held accountable, whether that's the players, the manager, the decision makers above the manager, the owners. Everyone needs to look inwards and really take accountability for what has been, definitely the worst season in my lifetime, one of the worst seasons in United's history. And there needs to be really wholesale, ruthless changes going into the summer.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the worst season in my lifetime as well. It's one of the worst seasons in Jay's lifetime. It's the worst season in, I think you have to be sort of in your 50s to remember anything
50s
worse.
50s or 60s,
which is absolutely absurd, of course. We did hear from Ruben Amorim at the end of the game, and he spoke about, he sort of had a couple of different angles. The first one was very apologetic about how bad him and how bad this team have been this season. Then he talked about being grateful to the fans for the fact that we've supported them, and the fact that obviously the fans in the ground in particular have supported them so much this season, even if they've not really deserved that support at times. And then finally ended with one of those little, I can already see the TikTok admins just clipping that up for the just in case file, where he said, when I first arrived, we won 2 games and we drew a game in my first 3 games or something like that. He said, at that point I said, there is a storm coming, this is going to be really difficult. What I'm telling you now is things will get better.
The good times are coming.
The good times are going to come back.
Yeah.
Do you believe him? Do you have confidence that what he's not that he's saying the truth because he doesn't know, but do you believe that he can help manufacture that?
I so desperately want to believe that can be the case.
It needs to be the case.
I have no idea. I think it's impossible to be rational and to be calculated about any predictions in the future for United, because I think we've learned from the last 10, 15 years that you can't really ever predict what's going to happen. He seems to understand the issues at United. He seems to be willing to take accountability for his own underperformance. He's been vocal about it throughout the season. Obviously, that has to be backed up with the appropriate actions to address those issues. Yeah. But he seems to kind of get it. And maybe I'm being fooled by, the conviction with which he speaks. But as a fan, I'm so desperate and so inclined to get behind what he's saying and believe that he can be someone that can take us into a kind of new era at United. It all sounds so cliche, but to hear the good times are coming, you want to believe it. You want to buy into that. And, one positive is that the players do seem to be buying into that. The players that he sees fit to take United into that new era do seem to be backing him. I think Bruno said after the Europa League final, he said, I am completely 100% convinced that he's the man to take United forward. So as a fan, I'm inclined to listen and to believe that can be true and that can be the case. But it's so hard to know what's going to happen, and a lot needs to go right. A lot of the recruitment, regardless of Amorim, the recruitment needs to be spot on. And from top to bottom, there needs to be a culture shift towards a more winning environment.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Right, that's going to be all from us. Final game of the season, but it isn't United's final game of the next 7 days, funnily enough. We've got 2 more games next week. This Asian Tour or mini post-season, current, whatever the fuck it is. United have got a game on Wednesday and a game on Friday next week. We'll be covering all that, but there's plenty to come between now and then. Kaz Mofo, who's been member for 27 months, I think you put it very nicely. It's been fun suffering this abysmal season together. I have full belief we can march on next season. Come on, United. Thank you to everyone for joining us. Thank you, Finn, for coming on. It's been a pleasure having you on the watch along and on the review. Manchester United, if we can bring up the league table one last time, finish 15th in the Premier League, their lowest ever Premier League finish you can see right there. But it's a 2-0 win on the day. There's some potential movement. Ruben Amorim is talking positively. Next season is a new season. Anything can happen. We all start on 0 points. So thank you again for joining us this season. We're going to be covering everything, of course, so don't go anywhere. My name is Joe. That's been Finn. This has been Stretford Paddock and the end of the 2024-25 season, the worst in United's recent history. We'll see you in a bit.